Devastating news this morning, just a few moments after we came on air. Within a minute of taking off from an airport in India, an Air India flight carrying 242 people, passengers and crew, crashed near the airport in Ahmedabad in Western India, carrying 53 British nationals on board. Devastating scenes, absolutely devastating scenes of that flight, AI 171, due to arrive in London Gatwick Airport at 6:25 this evening. Massive big ball of fire explosion as the plane hit the ground. Big plumes of smoke. Emergency services are on the scene. We have obviously big concerns about those on board the plane, but also big concerns about those on the ground as well, because of course some of the footage is showing some apartment buildings, a plane literally hitting an apartment building, massively built up area in that local area just outside the grounds of the airport. As you'll be seeing on air right now, some footage of the plane having just taken off and then just disappearing from view, a huge fireball being seen and as it hit the ground, and then big plumes of smoke. Well, let's talk to William Hallowell, who's an aviation journalist and joins us now. Good morning to you, William.
Morning, Julia. Thank you very much for having me on.
Can you just tell us just a little bit more detail about this plane and the circumstances in which a plane could actually, fall from the sky in this way soon after takeoff?
Well, firstly, I think it's important that we don't speculate on the cause at the moment. No. As far as I'm aware, there haven't been any reports about what exactly caused the crash. No. What we do know is that the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, it crashed within about a minute of taking off from about a height of 625 feet, which is, it's not obviously massively high compared to how high it's going to fly up, but it's probably, we don't know how many fatalities have come out of the incident yet, but as you said, 53 Brits, about 169 Indian nationals. It has been reported as well that the pilots had about 10,000 hours of flying experience between them. So
and is that a lot? That would make them very experienced.
Yes, it would. Yes. I mean, the other information we know, all flights have been cancelled or postponed, at Ahmedabad Airport at the moment. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I think it's important that speculation is kept to a minimum at this point.
Well, indeed. I know this particular aircraft, Boeing 778 Dreamliner, is it right to say that this is the first time we've seen a crash involving this particular aircraft?
That's something that people have been reporting. Obviously, there have been a number of cases in the last year or so involving Boeing aircraft. But, it is a terrible tragedy. And like I said, I think speculation as well is important to keep to a minimum.
OK, but we're just trying to put together information. Now, Air India has obviously announced that obviously soon after this crash happened, that there had been an incident. They've now set up a dedicated passenger hotline number. I'll read that for those who are watching and listening who may have concerns they've got a family member on board. Although, again, I think it's always important in these situations to establish with someone else here that if that was the actual flight, so that people who definitely have got loved ones on that plane, that they are able to get through. 1-800 5691 444 is the number. That's 1-800 5691 444. That's the number Air India has set up. Now, obviously, there have been big concerns for people back here in Britain with 53 Brits on board. We may indeed, many of the others on board, 169 Indians, 7 Portuguese, 1 Canadian. Obviously, that also includes the 12 crew, but it may well be resident in the UK, given this was a flight to Gatwick. In terms of, I know you want to avoid speculation, in terms of reasons why planes do go down. Now, we're always aware, aren't we, about this extra safety after takeoff and at landing. Those are the most dangerous times on airlines. Otherwise, air safety is incredibly good, not just in this country, but around the world. What are the specific causes of crashes over time that happen in these sorts of circumstances?
Well, one element could obviously be an incident like a bird strike. Like I said, I don't know if that's the exact cause, but these sorts of unexpected issues can obviously arise. a huge part of airline operations is maintenance on the aircraft. So that will obviously be something that the aviation regulators in India will be bringing up.
Some
with
sort
Air
of mechanical failure.
Yes, perhaps. That is obviously always one possibility. And like I said, I'm sure we'll find out more information on that as we hear investigations and probes going on from the regulators, and I'm sure officials from the government as well.
Yeah. Now, obviously, a lot of people will, be careful about which airline they choose to fly. They'll either go, I want to go somewhere, on the cheap and cheerful, a long trusted national airline. Does Air India have a good reputation for safety internationally?
Well, I can't particularly comment on that because I don't know if how that would compare if you were to rank up all the different airlines in the world and how that would stack up.
Okay. And in terms of what happens now, we know that there's black box sort of investigations that happen after any kind of air incident are very, very important in terms of finding out what happened, and for all airlines and all airline companies, and indeed all passengers and crew, making sure they don't happen again. Tell us what that process is.
Well, of course, like you mentioned, the black box will have information. We'll be finding out information such as the radio communications that were happening between the cockpit and air traffic control. That will obviously give some form of insight into the reasons that the incident happened, and those sad final moments before the plane obviously crashed. And like I said, once the emergency services have carried out all the evacuations of injured people and the area has been made safe, the badly affected infrastructure, the buildings, the official investigation will begin. Like I say, from the regulatory point of view, they'll be involved, and they'll be obviously launching a probe into the cause of the incident, perhaps mitigations, or like I said, if it was an incident like a bird strike, looking at those sorts of causes as well. Okay,
William Hallowell, aviation journalist, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Philip Ingram still with us. He's a former senior military intelligence officer. Obviously, we don't know, and it is only speculation at any one time, but at this time. But I mean, again, things, bird strike, mechanical failure, of course, a terror strike. I mean, these things are all possibilities that need to be looked at, and they're seeking out that black box. There are 2 black boxes, I think, kept on planes, and to get that information and have an investigation. Concern right now, though, will be trying to save lives. We know that emergency services are on the scene. They're putting out images and putting out flames of local residential buildings that appear to have been hit, and some of the footage showing the plane, fuselage in basically either end of a residential building, so concerned people on the ground. But one of the big issues there will be the fact that the plane was only in the air for less than a minute. Means that it would have had full tanks of petrol, of fuel.
Huge amounts of aviation fuel, 58,000 litres of aviation fuel. And the local Hindustan newspaper, the chief correspondent, is reporting that it hit the BJ Medical College at lunchtime, whenever the boys that are medical students were in the mess hall, and says that there are casualties there. So this only happened a short while ago, and therefore the priority on the ground at the minute is not looking for black boxes. It's trying to save lives and get the fires out, and then the investigation will start once they've secured the area and you've tried to get as many people out as possible.
And indeed, the big concern, of course, is that image of that fireball of the plane crash, because some hoped early on that the plane has had, there are crash landings and crash landings. We've all seen videos, a plane comes down, there's difficulty, even fuselage is breaking, but most people being able to walk out alive. But the explosion is going to be the biggest concern. Although, in fact, one of the most awful things covering these things over many years is actually in landings, even if there isn't an explosion, it's actually often the concern about the smoke. That's why you have these oxygen masks as well, but actually the smoke is often the reason why a lot of people lose their lives.
It is, and I've seen satellite photographs of the area that it came down, and it is like large parts of Indian cities. It's
very
hugely built up.
And the plane came down outside the perimeter of the... Now, of course, we know that pilots are very well... I mean, they're highly trained. These are 2 experienced pilots, 10,000 hours each, that obviously they're trained in circumstances. We saw, of course, that amazing landing of the plane at the Hudson River in New York some years ago, an absolutely heroic event, Hollywood movie level, where, realising, okay, I can't land, I land on these buildings, I'm going to, we're all going to die, and indeed people on the ground, trying to go somewhere that you cause, even if there are deaths, the minimal loss of life. I think we had no loss of life in that case. In this circumstance, if it happens so quickly within seconds, very different circumstances in an entirely built-up area, pilots pilots may not have realised, pilots may not have had any choice.
The pilots may not have any choice. They are trained in different emergencies, and the pilots earn their money taking off and earn the money landing. The plane can fly itself in between most of the time.
That's when you want the experience.
That's when you want the experience. We see some pictures of horrific landings you're coming in when there's big winds and aircraft almost coming in sideways and everything else. So the pilots will have rehearsed this sort of scenario beforehand, but in many cases there's actually nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, it was very, very concerning. 242 people on board an Air India flight due to land at Gatwick this evening at 6:25 p.m. has crashed outside Ahmedabad Airport in Western India. 53 Brits were on board that plane. Passengers included 2 babies as well. We're going to keep you up to date on any developments there. We know the King is being kept informed. A statement from the Prime Minister as well, saying the images are devastating. He's being kept updated on that situation. We'll keep you obviously updated with all the information as we get it.